Miss Andrews, are you okay?
Definitely not. I'm actress Valerie Allen, and I play Amy Andrews in the new film, The Empty Space.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
A violent attack leaves her without her boyfriend, her home, her sense of self. Amy, like so many of us, suffers from mental illness. As she tries to get her life back together, she's haunted by terrifying visions that may or may not be real. Empty Space goes beyond the slasher and takes you deep into the void. We hope you join us as our film premieres on streaming. We also hope that not only are you frightened, but you gain some insight into a serious problem that affects so many people, including the filmmakers.
I know how it sounds. What if it's real?
The Empty Space, a terrifying new vision from director Andrew Hara.
Hey guys, welcome to the Bomb Squad, where we all wear blue shirts for some reason. And I'm the first person who made that observation, nobody else. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. Okay, so guys, this is our first episode. If you saw the trailer before this, which you would have had to, I don't know how you skipped it, you will know that The Empty Space is now available on streaming. Such places as TUBI, Amazon Prime, other streaming services that I'll find the name of next week. And you can go, like if you were watching The Empty Space last week and you were reading on Judge Central how Andrew Hara is amazing, and you're like, let me go watch this movie, and you're going to rent it on Amazon, but you're like, I like it, and I'm going to buy the DVD Blu-ray combo, but I wish I could watch it with commercials. Well, you're in fucking luck. Because now you get to watch it on TUBI.com. And every time there's an eventful scene, you get to see a commercial for Olestra. So go check that out. We're all available this week. You'll also be seeing fun stuff on different websites. So check that out. There should be some more reviews. We're going to have a bunch of fun stuff. We brought Abby back, as you can see. Or maybe you can't see, depending on how I edit it. Who knows? But fun times ahead. So go check it out on Tubi. Check out the new trailer. Check out the new trailer on my page. It's the same trailer, but I get more views if you do it that way. And yeah, welcome to the official start of the episode, The Bomb Squad. So yeah, we brought Abby back. She picked the movie this time. Abby, will you tell us what movie you picked?
Yeah, I picked Mikey and Nicky, directed by Elaine May. I want to say it came out in 1969 or 67. I now can't remember. It is my favorite Letterboxd review on this movie is Elaine May heard that you watched The Godfather and made you smoke the whole pack. It's like a mob movie, but it is very unglamorous. It's about two friends who have known each other from since they were kids, and one of them owes money or took money from the mob and now has a guy coming after him, and he asks his friend for help. And it's kind of like a wandering around the city movie.
Right. So we need to address the elephant in the room. It's clear, like watching this movie, that Elaine May found a way to travel into the future, watch Borderland, write a better version of that movie.
What's Borderland?
Back in time to 1976. What's Borderland is a great question by William Murdoch on the Andrew Hara co-hosted podcast. He made it, and especially because William Murdoch made the music
for what?
Borderland, starring Joe Sinclitico.
And you know what? If you're asking yourself right now, what's Borderland? Well, let me introduce you to a new website. It's called TUBI.com. If you're watching Mickey and Nicky and you're like, I need there to be more ODs of cocaine and more St. Bernards, and also I want to watch this with commercials. Well, you're in luck. Check out Borderland. Check out, it gets commercials galore. Whoever can tell me which one has the most commercials wins a subscription to our page. Yeah, so I will probably talk a little bit about the similarities between this movie and Borderland. I had not seen this movie until Abby had been telling me to watch this movie for like 3 months, but then she had to come on the podcast to force me.
I'm very excited to have forced you to watch this movie.
But I'm very excited to talk about it. And yeah, we'll talk about it. But what did you guys think of Mickey and Nicky with John Cassavetes?
William, what did you think?
Oh,
We all
sorry.
looked at William
I
and
can't
we
really hear
didn't-
you, Andrew. I'm just sitting over here, just waiting for a pause. But no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was gonna be really funny and kind of a hilarious movie, and it definitely was because
Yeah.
it had some sort of similar vibes to Ishtar, like her other movie, but this movie got real heavy real fast in a way that I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting. And I would say I was really into it in the beginning. Towards the middle, I was kind of like, okay, but then the ending was that was definitely an ending for the ages for sure. And I think an ending can really make or break a movie. And I would say this one was bolstered by, I don't know, it was just such a weird look at 1970s dudes and kind of the toxic masculinity of the time, and it was interesting watching it now. And I don't know, just sort of the things that they could have gotten away with back then. They were hitting women a lot, but we also still laughed with them at the bar, and it was just a really strange, I feel like that happened in Ishtar too, with some sort of strange racist comments. I don't know, Elaine May, I feel like she made these really interesting male bonding movies, but it's all about sort of the male downfall of the time. And I think that's different now than it was then, but I like to look back on it and kind of see, what was kind of going on back then.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things I really liked about it, well, and I was almost the opposite. I was kind of it's it's a standard Lane May, John Cassavetes kind of that kind of era of filmmaking where it is a lot of hangout movies, and I mean, this was covered on Tarantino's podcast, and you can instantly tell that Tarantino loved this movie,
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting just in the way that they really break it down to you think of The Godfather or even Goodfellas, and we're talking about these kind of bigger guys, the heads of the mafias. But this is it's broken down to just these two random dudes who work kind of for the criminal organizations to the point where they don't even really know who they're working for. They're just kind of they know they're criminals and that's it. And you kind of see how they interact and how they're not the cops aren't looking for them because nobody really gives a shit about these guys. And so it's interesting, and I really like. We'll get more into it in a little bit, but I really like their take on male friendship and friendship in general, and how sometimes friendships are bad. Sometimes you gotta let them go.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think it's it really helps. It's very naturalistic, where it was just I'll just let them talk, and it's kind of I think in a way it captures, when you have a friend and you're both kind of ready to call it a night, but you can't yet, and then you're just kind of all right, well, I guess let's do this. And it's very
Yeah.
it kind of get you feel that exhaustion that they both feel. It's very interesting. It almost has this Waiting for Godot type quality for a little bit of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Waiting for Godot vibes.
Totally.
Yeah, for all you Godot heads out there.
And I remember what I was gonna tell William is I almost had the opposite, because I wasn't I knew because of Tarantino, he was if you haven't watched this movie, skip this part, and then he was go to this time jump, and I went to that time jump. He's and yeah, so Peter Falk's turns him in, and I was okay, what the fuck? You just so I knew that was coming, and so I kind of was watching the beginning, kind of expecting this to be a last minute twist, and so I wasn't super into it. But once he has he talks to Ned Beatty, and you find out that he hangs up the phone call and stuff, I was oh, it's gonna we're gonna deal with this from the beginning, and I thought that was an interesting way. And after that, I was pretty hooked. Once they go to the girl's house, and just the kind of way that they're constantly asking you to judge both of them, and they're showing you they'll show you one side of this character, and they'll have you judge it based on that. And they go to the girl's house, and they show you a different side, and you have to kind of get it does feel like you're getting to know these people as well-rounded characters throughout the course of the film. And so I thought that made it made you want to keep it felt very intense, despite the fact that most of it is just them bitching at each other.
Yeah.
What did you think? Why did you pick this one? Other than I kept putting it on.
I picked it because I think it's very like it's a really interesting entry on like the mob movie genre. Totally different from so many of the other like Godfather and Goodfellas. Obviously, like Elaine May was like the third woman director in the Directors Guild. I also just really like how naturalistic it is. Like you were saying, I think it makes it really great to get to know the characters, but B, it really feels like, despite the fact that apparently I thought for sure most of this had to be improv because Elaine May was an improv comedian for so long, but apparently there's like so little improv in it. Like most of this is really scripted. Yeah, but it feels really improvisational and natural. And I just think that like the exploration of their friendship and how like you have come to hate this person, but also they're the person who knows you the best out of the entire world. And like once they're gone, you know that a piece of you is also going to be gone. There is I can't remember who said it. I think it's Tolkien. And I now can't remember who his friend was, which is terrible considering the context of this thing. But like saying that when a friend dies, that they know such a specific version of you that specific version of you is also going to be gone forever, and like that's totally in Peter Falk's performance as well. I just think it's really like a very cool, like kind of a small personal movie, and I really like those a lot. So, and I think this is a great example of one of them.
Yeah. I think it's really well done, and like for our fans who might not be as well versed in film as us, and also for Josh. So like John Cassavetes and Peter Falk, they had been in a bunch of movies, and they had like always been best friends in these movies, and so they had like this long history. So it'd be essentially like you go to watch the next Simon Pegg Nick Frost movie, and then like halfway through Nick Frost like turns in Simon Pegg and he's gonna murder him, and, and the fact that they bring that with them, that kind of history, makes it even more interesting. Like, because these two had worked together for so long that they just naturally play off each other, and I think it makes, Elaine May knew what she was doing because putting them both together, kind of like it answers. I mean, it almost gives them a jump start because they already have such natural chemistry that even though John Cassavetes is kind of like a dick even from the beginning. He's kind of like a pain in the ass, and you could tell that he's just always been this. Like he'd always been that character, and so
Yeah.
it makes you kind of like, because I think if it had been any other actors, you'd been like, well, why is Peter Falk with him still? Why isn't he left? And he even tries to, but like I think their chemistry kind of keeps it together, so they feel like friends, and when they feel like friends, you don't have to ask why they're not separating. You know,
Yeah. No, it totally feels like there's another movie happening like around the margins of this movie that you haven't seen, but you know or that is there.
Yeah, and I like it too because, like, again, there's another film called Borderland, and it's the same thing where we're dealing with these kind of low life people, and like, I don't mean low life as in like a judgment. I mean low life like on their hierarchy of crime, And so in Borderland, we answered that question because the Pablo Medina character comes and he just automatically solves every problem because he's like a real member of the cartel. And in this one, they don't have that character, so it's just kind of like these like kind not bumbling, but it's all these kind of people who are never gonna work their way up. Even Ned Beatty, like he's playing the hitman, and he's like 45 minutes away, and he keeps coming late, and it's like I don't. It's just such an interesting like it feels very real worldy, in a way that like The Godfather, every action is like a chess move, and in this one, every action kind of feels like they're just throwing the chess pieces on the board and hoping that they land, And I think that makes it interesting.
Yeah, like that scene where Peter Falk's character is meeting with like the mob boss character, and he's like, he said that you didn't like me, and his boss just laughs at him, like no reassurance. It's just like, ha, funny, great, all right.
It's like, yeah, let's get him out of here. It's like they really don't like him at all.
It's very like, I don't know, like Ned Beatty, like all he does is complain about like how this like what a pain it is, and like he's not even getting paid that much, and it's like, oh, I could have done like, it's just one of those like, yeah, when you have to hear someone like bitch about their job to you, and you're just like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
it's, I don't know, it's very, like I said, it's almost like agonizing how realistic it is. It like you're experiencing someone annoying, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of like it makes it funny again because you think of like the cash payments for like killing someone, and it's like you don't think of the logistics of like how much you have to bargain for, like having to like discuss wages, you know. And I think that
Yeah.
also Ned Beatty's just fun to like watch. He's such a weird character actor in everything he does, and to see him in here, he has like the luscious locks in this movie. So wow, I can't believe.
It's a weird look to give him long hair.
Wow.
It's like, oh,
Also,
I don't know if that's quite flattering.
so a piece of trivia that Peter Falk found out on set and Andrew found out while reading the trivia page: Ned Beatty is not related to Warren Beatty. They are not related in any way. And apparently, Peter Falk was like, when he found out, he was so distressed that he shut down filming for a day. And I also was like, what the fuck? They're not related? What is he doing? Yeah, I think.
Do you think that's like when Bill Murray thought that it was one of the Coens who directed Garfield, and then he's like, "Oh, you just have the same last name." Like, made a mistake.
That's rough. I did not know about that.
I even like because I saw that in trivia, and I even went on Wikipedia to confirm because I was like,
this can't be right.
The 70s, man, everyone could be a star. I loved it. Yeah, I think and the cool thing is, you feel for these characters. It is pretty funny. Like they're just such I don't know, seeing these guys who kind of live moment to moment is just such like a weird feeling. It's like you're seeing id, personified. It's just like there's no double thoughts on anything.
Yeah, it just kind of has that grasping desperation of I'm gonna do anything right this second. But...
Yeah, what did you think? Because I've never seen any of his other movies. William, you've seen Ishtar, right? We might even talk about Ishtar when William's wife can get on the pod. So what did you think?
Does she love Ishtar? Is that her movie of choice?
I mean, we've only seen it twice, so not love, but just we'd always heard that it was such a bonkers movie, and then we watched it, and it was really charming, and the way that they have what's his name, Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman play off of each other is just so beautiful and fun and entertaining, and I feel like she really brought that same thing here with Peter Falk and Cassavetes. And
yeah,
I think too, wasn't Ishtar bombed by the studio kind of purposely? I think from this, but I also want to say that they hated Warren Beatty for some reason at the point that it was coming out.
They might.
I don't remember
you probably
anymore.
know more about it than I do. I just know that it was somehow bombed, but it really wasn't a bad movie though. It's have you seen? Has anybody here seen Ishtar?
I haven't.
I haven't. It's been on my list.
It's not as bad as people say. It's not this crazy fucked up movie. For sure, it was bombed on purpose. That's kind of Elaine May's her tragedy is that she's really great, but she never really got her chance. And I mean, Ishtar is cool. It's funny. It's about two songwriters who go on a crazy journey, and this is about two mob friends that go on a crazy journey. But that's what I was kind of saying at the beginning. I feel like she really understands this interesting male bond, but seen from an outsider's perspective, I guess. And I wonder if that's the comedy scene, and it was a really male dominated society. So she was just always around these man babies, just always fighting with each other. And I don't know. I just thought that it was really fresh, and it kind of reminded me of Mean Streets. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Woman Under the Influence, that Cassavetes movie, which I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It feels very
right,
in the same
especially
line
the very last scene. It felt just the opening part of Woman Under the Influence for sure. Yeah. It's just this kind of hard hitting I don't know, kitchen sink kind of drama, and I don't know. I just finished watching this movie, so I feel a little whoa.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was just going to be kind of funny because Ishtar was hilarious. And so I woke up and I was like, Leslie, let's get Nicky and Mikey going. And then now I'm well.
And that's interesting too, because I didn't realize until this morning, doing my Wikipediaing, so I have vague things to talk about. That I don't think I knew that Elaine May had written The Birdcage, which is that I think it's a late 80s movie about exactly. And I it feels like it falls really in step with like this movie and what you're saying about Ishtar,
Right.
and then like the Birdcage, like all these like male, like different variations on male
Totally.
relationships and that kind of thing. It's very, very
And like in
interesting.
Ishtar, it's very similar to like Warren Beatty kind of plays like the guy who's always having a crisis, and Dustin Hoffman kind of plays like the Peter Falk kind of like fall guy. And I think this movie like really does a great job of just like showing like how somebody who's so charismatic but so fucked up can just like reach their claws into somebody and just like keep them making sure that they're okay. Because I was thinking like, what if it was reversed? Like, what if Peter Falk was having a freak out, and Cassavetes had to go help him out? He would be like, Peter Falk, you're not going to hurt me if I walk away from you, so I don't really care. But it's like Cassavetes has like this like crazy energy, so it's like if you leave him alone, he might hurt somebody or himself. So it's like you have to babysit them, but it's also very interesting to watch them crash and burn. So it's like this weird kind of like toxic grasp, and I feel like I've been on that end of like a friendship like that before, and it's crazy, and it's kind of I feel like it was kind of hard to watch, like just Peter Falk always fall back onto his friend who's just like doesn't care about anybody but himself, but at the same time he also needs Peter Falk, and Peter Falk maybe needs him, we don't really know. But yeah, it was just it was a very devastating picture of two friends. I thought it was really well done, but really intense. Really sad.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that she wrote The Birdcage, because it kind of, I mean, I haven't seen Ishtar, but I feel like this movie does the same thing where she's kind of confronting these gender norms that males have to go through, but through the perspective of people who don't want to, like, who either are just kind of fall into it naturally but don't really fit into it, or in The Birdcage's case, like the whole point of that movie is that they don't fit in at all, and they have to kind of like
right,
and like that kind of happens in this one, and like I don't know, I kind of see it. One of the best things about this movie to me, and I wonder, and Abby, you might have a more perspective on this, because I knew again that Peter Falk was what he was about to do, and so watching the movie, like there's that one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when Peter Falk tells Richard or John Cassavetes, he goes, like Cassavetes is like trying to like, he's very paranoid at the beginning. He doesn't want to leave his apartment. He doesn't want Peter Falk to go anywhere. Peter Falk's trying to get cream, and he's like, "Don't leave." And then like they constantly arguing about where Peter Falk's going. Why is he leaving? Why is he going over here? And there's like that scene where Peter Falk is like, "You know what? You should probably call someone you trust." And like the first moment that registered, you're thinking like it's a friend who's kind of at the end of his limit. Like this is what he's gone through a lot, but watching it and knowing what Peter Falk is doing, it almost kind of creates a sinister undertone. Like, is it kind of this reverse psychology baiting thing?
Kind of like a predator-prey thing.
Yeah, where he's like kind of letting him come to him, because the whole time, I mean, especially the ending, you can tell Peter Falk is like, he's at odds with it. Like he's already done it, but he still feels kind of like he could, like, you almost feel like he could tell John Cassavetes at any second, and they could just run up. They could make a run for it, and so it like you don't really know where. And I seen Peter Falk in a couple of things. Mostly he's playing like Columbo or a Columbo type character. To see him in this such like a complicated role where he's kind of a scumbag, but he's not really. But he's also like at the end of his rope, and he's like just trying what's best, and he doesn't get respected. I don't know. It's just like. Yeah. It's such a complicated character, and it's so good,
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I love that scene of them on the bus where it's like Peter Falk's character knows that as soon as they get off the bus at the movie theater, John Cassavetes' character is gonna get like murked, but like you can like when it's coming, because like in the first time it's so obvious that he's like miserable and conflicted about it, and him trying to pay a loan back, that it's like this money's just going to be on John Cassavetes' character's dead body. Like just hold on to it, dude. It's so good.
Yeah. And and as it goes on, I mean, there's that scene where they go with the girl, and she kind of rebukes Peter Falk, and he like gets mad, and Cassavetes like. You see that other side of it where Cassavetes is kind of telling him, like, at first he's like trying to console him, and after a while he's like, dude, it's not my fault that you couldn't close with this girl, she's a slut, and so like it's this kind of like he doesn't respect anyone, but he especially doesn't respect his friends.
Finds the weakness and then just like knows how to prod
it. And he does it with the girl too, and he's like constantly chipping at people, and you can just tell like you can tell why why his character is so likable and why he got into this mess, and you can also tell why it's like his time to kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if they ever say exactly why they're gonna kill him, but you're like, yeah, he definitely just made someone mad. And
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was something to do with the bank because he like worked at the bank, and then he did something with his like one of his coworkers, and his coworker got whacked, and so he knew it was coming,
Hmm.
and so he was just trying to get out of town. And it's kind of that thing where it's not as important as anything else in the film. You know? It's
Right.
like they kind of cover it.
Right. It's none of the reason doesn't matter. You know, it's very well. And they also like they kind of show because like the very first thing they do when he's like, "We got to get out of here," is they just go to a bar and drink like 20 beers each. it's like
Yeah, like they rent a car to get out of town, and then they just go to a bar and drink.
There's so many beer bottles and cans on their table. You're just like, oh my god. So you're like, okay, there's not really going to be a sense of urgency. This is definitely going to be like things will happen at this like speed,
Right.
you know.
Well, and it's because Peter Falk is trying to keep him in town as long as.
Right. But it's like John Cassavetes' personality is very like, oh yeah, sure, let's just do this, you know.
Right. And I think it's that thing where it's like Cassavetes' character is so like selfish to the point of like he doesn't realize like the little things that are happening, you know, like the fact that they're staying in that bar for like forever, and like they keep staying places, and Peter Falk keeps being like, what the hell's going on? And so it's definitely like his selfishness ends up being the undoing of him for so many reasons, you know. And in Cassavetes, you know, credit, I've seen a couple of Cassavetes films. He always does a great job, but this is again super hard role because once you start disliking Cassavetes, you still have to be able to relate to him, or you're gonna lose the whole picture. You know, you need to feel bad, even as this guy gets worse and worse as the movie goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that Cassavetes' character ever thinks that he's going to make it out alive?
I think he's really good at mental gymnastics, and I think he could believe that even if he didn't really believe it. I think he could convince himself in a moment. Did I just steal someone's answer? I just jumped in there. I'm so sorry.
No.
Okay, cool.
Well, and I think like one of my favorite parts in the whole thing, and spoilers because I'm gonna spoil the ending. And if you haven't seen it, I would suggest going and watching it. It's on HBO. Check it out. I refuse to call it Max. But one of my favorite scenes is he's like at the very end where he's knocking on the door. He's trying to get into the house, and it's John Cassavetes on the outside. Peter Falk is on the inside. He's like barricading the doors, and you see the car slowly pull up, and it's Ned Beatty. And like the whole time that Cassavetes is knocking on the door, you're like, dude, turn around, like get the fuck out of there. But then Cassavetes does something very interesting. He looks at Ned Beatty, and he tells him, "Give me 1 second."
Yeah.
Like in his mind, if he can just talk to Peter Falk and get the door open, he'll be safe. And it's like, even though he knows exactly what's going to happen in that point, and it's exactly what does happen, he's still like, oh, if I have like just this one more step, and I can get to the next step. And so like to answer that question, it's almost like I don't know if he does think he can make it out, but I don't think he ever thinks that far ahead, which is kind of his entire problem in this film. You know?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like in Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, there's no way he will ever get himself out of the hole he's in, but in his mind, things are going great.
Right. It's not a hole, man.
Man, that would be like the most stressful double feature of all time. Like if you did this movie and then Uncut Gems, like I think you would give yourself a heart attack. That sounds amazing. I want to try that.
It reminded me of Uncut Gems a lot, especially like Uncut Gems goes a different way with the ending, but just the way that when I finished Uncut Gems and the ending happens, I was like, there was no other way for this movie to end. I mean, even if it didn't end like this movie, this character was always going to end up in this situation.
A week later it would have happened. Yeah.
Cassavetes, even if he had made it through the door, even if he had made it through the night, he was never going to clean up his act. He was always like, the scene with the girl is perfect because he goes from him like telling her how much he loves her, and then he just kind of discards her. So it's like he was never gonna care about these people. He even though he's knocking, wants to talk to Peter Falk. It's like it was not a resolution. He wasn't like going to tell him like, "Oh, I'm sorry for everything I did. I really loved you." It was just to get through the door so that he didn't get the bullet in his back. And so I think like that makes it an interesting dynamic, and it makes it like again, the whole time you're kind of like, it's such a toxic relationship between the two of them, and it's such an interesting. And again, it's not really even now. I mean, it's been what 40 years since this movie came out, and there's still not a lot of movies that kind of examine the toxic friendship between males in this kind of way, and especially like for a while, every friendship was like looked at as between males looked at as like, oh, this is what we need, like this is better, and it's like, yeah, but sometimes, regardless of what the sex is, male, female, actual relationship, platonic ones, they can be toxic, and so like I think that's an interesting thing to check out and to like look at, and I think it makes every tragedy in this movie so much worse that like none of them are coming off clean after the end of this. Like even Peter Falk he's still gonna be a low life, nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
they were all they had, and they lose each other. So it's just, it's like kind of like William said, it's a very heady film that I was expecting it, but not that depressing.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a few like because obviously this movie is so like cinema verite for the film majors.
Okay.
But that like of like the time and place of like the 70s when it was made, where they'd be like, oh, take a Gelusil, and I was like, was that like their Valium that it was just a
Yeah.
brand
Was
name,
that-
or it's like take a Gelusil and call them that. Or at one point they're like oh yeah, let's just hop over the cemetery fence. Like we used to do that in college. It's like, is that a college thing in the
Right.
70s? You just jump into cemeteries and
Yeah.
fuck around, I guess.
To be fair, me and William like broke into cemeteries and amusement parks. I mean, we didn't break in; we were invited, and we definitely played our.
Yeah, I've definitely been invited on some late night cemeteries.
I've jumped over
What's the?
cemetery
You're just
wall
hanging
once.
out, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a strange idea to me.
Yeah.
Maybe because I never was invited. Maybe because I saw the movie Grave Dancers and I was like, I know what's going to happen if I do
Not
this.
good.
Mention the movie Grave Dancer. Nobody understands that reference.
I saw that movie in theaters.
And like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a very collegey thing.
Just to bust into cemeteries and just mess around.
Yeah.
I think youths want to hang out places that they're not supposed to
Yeah, I
hang
guess
out.
the kind of like, oh, let's go into the quarry. You're not allowed, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I was
Well,
like
and, like,
24,
some
there
of
was
them-
like the cemetery that was right next to a bunch of the bars in Austin, and like people would just jump over when they were drunk. But it wasn't like anything cool. It was just
You just send them.
you walk in and you walk around, then you leave, and it's like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
tight.
William, do you remember when we broke into that amusement park because we were looking
Again, you were invited.
Yeah. I was
at
invited to that.
amusement park from the entrance that we were greeted by, and yeah, like I mean, it was cool because we wanted to
Yeah.
shoot a short there, and we
Very
called.
liminal.
Yeah, but like, yeah, you just kind of get in there and you're like, okay, I guess let's
Yeah.
go.
It's all kind of
Breaking
fun, but it's
into an
also like
amusement
not worth
park
the stress.
that's
Yeah.
like that's like the beginning of every bad horror movie. You're like, and then there was just
Yeah.
one clown looking at me from the distance.
To be fair, we wanted
You
to
guys must
film
look
a
into my
horror
heart.
movie there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
And like, and going back to the film, I think one of my the best the opening is good because it's like John Cassavetes like freaking out and Peter Falk gets there, and he's like so calm. He's like trying to calm him down. He's like, "Oh, come on, let's get some food in you, let's get some coffee in you, let's get out of here." And like let's figure it out. Like it's not as bad. And then he goes to the coffee shop to get coffee. He just needs cream and milk.
Oh yeah, he loses his
Yeah.
shit.
And the guy's like, "We don't sell cream here. You have to buy a coffee." He's like, "Okay, then give me a coffee." He's like, "Okay, you get one cream with each coffee." And then Peter Falk just walks back and starts
Yeah.
choking. He's like, "Give me the fucking cream." 32 minutes, I can curse now.
And that
And
lady in the
so-
background is just like,
Yeah.
That would be my reaction
Yeah,
if
you're
something
just like,
happened.
not
I would
my
like
business.
just freeze.
But like, well, no, and that's such a good because like up until that point, Peter Falk's been like the kind of the calm, rational one. You're like, oh no, he is like explosive as well. You know?
Mhm.
Well, it like goes to show how nervous he is about what's happening. At the beginning, you don't really understand why. It's not until he makes that phone call that you're like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah.
I get what's
High
happening.
pressure
And
situation.
that's what I'm saying. Like the movie, it's just it's like every scene is a new layer that they're unveiling for you, and so like, you really
Mhm.
need to get to the end before you make a decision on this film.
Yeah. Like in one of those first early scenes, Cassavetes' character asks for Falk's watch, and it's like you can see how hesitant he is to hand it over, but like you don't really learn why it's important until like more than halfway through the movie, like at the beginning of the third act, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like those are always my favorite kind of movies where it's like you can't because I think especially now with our culture, you want to like judge a movie by the first instinct. You write in your letterbox review immediately. And to me, the most interesting ones are the ones that kind of don't do that. They make you take your time.
Yeah, kind of rewarding you actually watching carefully and that kind of thing.
And speaking of that, we had a review that was like, oh yeah, I saw this movie and the empty space is what they're talking about. And they were like, character's unlikable. Like you don't relate to the character. And it's like, but as you kind of get to relate to her, you understand like what's wrong with her. And so like I think that's always a risk because again, the person who told me that they were like, kind of want to turn it on for a while. So I think like making it about a realistic character that has both sides of that, they're likable and unlikable at the same time, just like people are in real life. It's not an easy thing. It's a definite risk, especially in the 70s. And I think that's super cool. That she kind of, not only did she do that, she did it twice with two different characters. And so, except for Ned, everyone always loves him.
And I don't know if you like read up on this too, how troubled this production was. Like,
oh man,
where like this is like she was fighting the studio, she was fighting more than one studio.
She locked out of the editing room at one point.
Super over budget. Yeah, she wanted final cut and was like, I don't even care if I make money, but then they like wouldn't give it, so she hid one of the reels in like her husband's friend's apartment or like garage or something in a different state, so they couldn't legally get it. It was just like,
whoa,
man.
I think it's because they like. I want to say that the studio massively like recut the movie that she had put out earlier, and she was like gutted by that, so she did not want to go through that again.
I understand that. Yeah,
the version that we all just
like they had
the Criterion version, is that like that was like her director's cut, right? Or is that like what her vision would have been?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And I think, which is funny because I think apparently she actually cut out like 19 minutes of it or something like that because it was longer when they released it, but it was like, I think it was like full of continuity errors and that kind of stuff, and they just kind of slapped it together.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, like having shot one of these movies, it's the editing is everything, like anyone shooting long dialogue scenes, that if it doesn't, I mean, not so much continuity wise, but just like pacing wise, this movie.
Oh yeah, it can be intolerable, right? Like you have to cut it really carefully.
Right. I mean, like, and in a movie like this where they're literally just walking around talking about like, oh, let's go visit my dead mom. It's like, if it meanders, you lose everyone.
Yeah,
it's
true.
Yeah, I think it was cool, and it's also like I just like watching like dirty 1970s New York, or like America.
Yeah.
Like the way
the filthiness of it. Yeah,
it's just a dirty place.
All their lives are bad, or even like at the end where he's in his nice house, like and his wife's there. You're like, oh, this seems awful. Like,
oh, you can smell the dust on those like huge curtains.
Yeah, it's an intense film, but I think it's good. I think it's like super cool. It's cool that because like when you hear, I mean, it feels very Cassavetes', but Elaine May did a great job like making this her own and kind of like making it feel good and like. It's also great that you went to Birdcage because it's the themes are similar, but the
very different tone. Yeah.
As soon as I read that, I was like, "This makes so much sense."
Yeah.
But
which again, I love that movie. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's that thing where, working through like male toxicity. It's like, and it's funny because. You look at a movie like this and you'd be like, oh, if the conservatives saw this movie, they'd be claiming it was too woke for their sensibilities, And it's just a funny kind of like that. This has always been film. We've always been like testing the way we deal with humanity, and I think it's interesting. I think it almost works. It would almost work well as a companion piece to The Godfather, because they're both kind of about men in America, and like living this American dream, but one of them is about what happens when you get it, and the other one's what happens when you don't. And I think like it's a very interesting double-edged sword of like the gangster film is how we view society, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you have to watch The Godfather 2 and then this, and then you have to commit to watching The Irishman. And that I feel really gives you the full gamut of
the
everything.
capstone of how bad their lives are.
Yeah.
When you walk out of the theater, you just got the long beard like Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
Good Van Winkle. But yeah, and also me and Josh, this is the only time we're ever going to be able to talk about this. So she also wrote the original Heartbreak Kid. We did not see the original Heartbreak Kid, but me and Josh watched the remake of the Heartbreak Kid, which is one of the worst films we've ever seen.
Oh, the Ben Stiller one.
But it has one good joke at the very end.
Oh, and the very last scene is funny. Yeah,
Oh,
it's not
God.
worth watching the whole movie, maybe, but
yeah. But I would kind of want to see the original because the remake is such like a 2000 sex comedy that it's like I don't think you could have made that movie.
Is the last scene actually funny, or is it just that you suffered through a whole long movie that was desperately unfunny before it, and so it like got you out of surprise?
It's
a little both. You're definitely fatigued by the end. It might be a better Nathan Lever type situation that's going on there.
It's kind of like,
so
it's one of those movies where the end like is so disrespectful to the rest of the movie. But since you didn't like the rest of the movie, you're like, that was pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think that as soon as I saw it, I was like, really? Like, the Heartbreak Kid? What the hell? But yeah, I think it's cool. I think this is a good movie. I really liked it. And I think like it works well. I think it's funny that it reminded me of Borderland a lot. But I'll find a way to mention every movie whenever I get a chance. Even the slightest connection.
Yeah, next week we'll find out how The Flash reminds you of The Empty Space, and that'll be really interesting. So.
Oh my gosh, are y'all watching The Flash?
Are we?
Oh
No
God,
comments.
okay.
Next week we're actually going to find out why Romeo and Juliet reminds us of The Empty Space between me and Lloyd.
I wasn't there for that one, so.
You're on your honeymoon.
I've never even seen Romeo and Juliet. Don't know what it's about.
It's
two
also
kids.
a real good movie.
Like a teen romance comedy.
Yeah.
Chill.
But yeah, I think this movie is good. Any last words on Mickey and Nicky?
Definitely a 70s gem that I think is as hard hitting as anything else that was really famous at the time.
Yeah.
And just like Abby's last pick, I'm glad that I have now seen this movie. So thank you.
Yeah, I say watch it on HBO before Max is like sold for parts in 2 months. So,
oh man, for real.
You know, do it while you still have
Get
a
on
chance.
So like you can watch this movie, but first you have to watch 15 episodes of Guy Fieri's Supermarket Crash.
Yeah, to unlock tokens to watch like a good movie. Yeah.
Don't give them ideas.
Abby, any last words?
Oh, that's brutal. Thank you for watching this movie. I'm very excited that I could force y'all to watch this. I think I just think it's a really cool entry in the genre.
Yeah, and I think it makes it even more interesting that it was directed by Elaine May, and she's, obviously coming from female perspective. It's like, going back to the 70s, and that's why I think it'd be cool to watch with The Godfather, like Goodfellas. You see these kind of like the way men would handle it, and you see how she handles it and everything.
I think too, you bring up an interesting point because it's like it would be very easy for her to treat these characters without any sympathy whatsoever. But there is so much sympathy for both characters, like a real sense of like this relationship is both extremely poisonous, but also like very important, and kind of particularly with that last scene, obviously, which is like such a home run, but it's like Peter Falk's character just really wants, like, it's all jealousy and a weird kind of love, but it's also he really just wants to be heard by someone, literally anyone. And for a really long time, Cassavetes' character was apparently the only person doing that because like even his wife doesn't listen to like the details of what he's saying. And there's so much sympathy in that from the direction, which would be very easy to not do that.
Yeah.
And I think, like, again, one of my favorite things about it is that, and that's why I try not to compare too much to Cassavetes' other films, because it does have that kind of Cassavetes film, like that kind of meandering talking, but you can tell that Elaine May has made it her own. Like, it doesn't feel like Cassavetes took over. And I
Yeah.
think it would have, I mean, knowing anything about Cassavetes, you knew he wanted to. You know that he always wanted to be able to. But the fact that he trusted her enough to let her have her own vision and like she had the, she was strong enough to be able to do that, because even like anyone can get taken over by it. They try to do it to me sometimes, and so like making it her own, making it her, I think it just adds to how good it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah.
And like now we go back to the slums with the Flash next week. No more
Down in the gutter.
no more themes. It's going back to the slums. But yeah, thank you guys. I'm going to release this one next week, so it's going to be a double dose of Abby, because I wanted to do a proper introduction to the fact that we're now on TUBI, Empty Space. All the movies behind me are on TUBI, except for Mad Max. That one doesn't count. But who's even heard of it? Yeah, come back next week. Tell us what you saw. Check out the Empty Space. You have no excuse anymore. And yeah, thank you, Abby, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me
So
again.
we'll see you next time on The Bomb Squad.